Matterwaves is one of the most powerful generators in thinking particles. Let's go ahead and create a new rule. Come up to the master dynamic, turn off edit on the fly so we get real-time updates. Come back into the dynamic set, in the create panel, go to the operators, into the generator, and choose Matterwaves. Now Matterwaves has the ability to create particles on existing max objects, scene geometry, or it can also create particles using other particles as inputs. Several of the other generators have that ability as well. But Matterwaves has some very special kind of extra parameters that we're going to take a look at here in a sec. Let's go ahead and pick the scene object. You can see we've got a kind of a blurred bitmap on there. It's just to give us some grayscale values. And right away you can tell these particles are going to be born from Matterwaves into the all group. Let's go ahead and create a new group called green just to get them out there. And we'll tell Matterwaves not to use all but to emit to green particles. We'll scrub that, and now we can see those green particles come out right away. That's because by default Matterwaves has a speed value of 10. We're going to go ahead and change that right now to 0. And up here in the top view you can see that we kind of have a grid arrangement. Matterwaves has a whole section devoted to controlling how these particles are being born on the surface. It's under the emitter section. We have the ability to limit and choose which material ID, smoothing group, etc. But one of the big ones, of course, is how fine is this grid going to be. We should turn on show so we can actually see where the potential birth locations are. And these red dots are going to show us that. Well, this may not be enough and may not be fine enough resolution, so let's go ahead and increase the number of U emitters and the number of V emitters. You can see that gets quite a bit better, quite a bit more fine, but let's also go ahead and turn on random, and that will kind of scatter them around. Now it's still only going to give birth, right now we're set to count. Let's go ahead and switch to pistol shot. So it's only going to create 100 particles. And it's going to use, a random selection of these emitters in red to determine where to born the green particles. But let's take a look. There's some other options we have. We're going to let's leave show on for right now. We'll go ahead and reduce this number a little bit because what we want to do is take a look at pistol shot per emitter. And what this is going to do then is it's going to create one particle at every potential emitter location. Okay, pretty standard. Let's turn off per emitter. Let's go down to the emitter and turn off show. We'll increase this a little bit more. And some of the other great features of Matterwaves is that it has a fire button. Fire button is going to control when the particles turn on or off, or when it's going to emit particles. What we can do, this is very similar to the on input, but this can be animated easily inside Max. We'll go ahead and we'll start with it off until we hit frame 10, and then we'll start emitting until frame 50 when we turn off again. So you can see that fire button's animated. And we're going to go ahead and set our particle emission to particles per second. Let's do about 500. And once we hit 10, it's going to start creating a whole bunch of particles until we reach 50, and then it'll stop. Let's go ahead and put some speed back on these guys to get them out there. And you can tell right away it starts giving birth to a bunch of particles at once. It just kind of immediately dives into this particles per second. It starts off right away giving birth to 500 per second. What's nice about Matterwaves is it has the ability to do kind of an attack in and sustain value. So we can say that as soon as it starts giving birth, I want it to ramp up for how many seconds. In this case we don't have a whole lot of time, so we'll just say half a second. And when it dies off, let's put it at 1 second. So what'll happen is it will fade in to this birth rate value over half a second. Hits 10, you can see them come in slowly, and then it reaches the full rate. and then it dies off over a second. That's not too apparent. We didn't really give ourselves very much time in there, but if we were to adjust that fire value, we could probably see that better. We're going to assign this a Boolean controller, and we'll set the off value for the fire back out here to, let's say 80. So now we should be able to see the sustain value of 1 second a little better. So a second off of 80 means right around 50 it'll start to fade out. And it fades off pretty slowly there. Okay, but some of the other available options in Matterwaves that make it so great. Let's actually clear out that fire value first. And that. What we want to take a look at is map control. You can see on this map here that we've got these grayscale values. We're going to go ahead and say we want to only birth particles in the bright areas. The way we're going to do that is down here in the emitter section. We're going to use material map emission, and by default it goes ahead and uses whatever material maps assigned to the object. And what we want to do is set a threshold so that, and this is a value threshold, so anything really bright, 0.8 bright is going to be able to give birth to particles, but anywhere darker is not. If we start to lower that, it's going to go from white toward black in the emission. So somewhere right around in there is pretty good. Let's come back up. We'll remove these attack sustain values. So this is how we're able to control where particles are born on the surface using a map. It's use material map emission and then setting a threshold. Now something else we can do, we'll turn that off. And let's say that we want to be able to control the speed of the particles at emission based on the map. Well, when we come back up here toward the top, we can see that we've got the speed assignment, but we also have a mask slot available. What we can do, this is the material that's assigned to that object, and this is the actual bitmap for it. We can go ahead and take that bitmap and drop it into the speed mask slot, use an instance of it, and now what'll happen is particles who are born on the light areas are going to be going faster, are going to reach this full potential. That's a little too fast. And particles in the dark areas are going to be born at a much slower speed. So we can kind of see that effect there.